question. Okay. I'll come there in a bit. What's your name?
My name is Shashwat. Yeah. Hi, Mark. I am Shashwat, and I lead the technology team at holidify.com. So my question was related to the technology that you guys are working on, the Oculus Rift. So I wanted to know that how guys you have decided to are you guys planning to incorporate that somehow to the social media? And the second part of my question is how can as a developer will be able to get more of that information, and how can we use that technology into our stuffs and we can work on that?
Absolutely. So for your second question first, we have dev kits for Oculus. You can already get them. It's a few $100s, and we're shipping them all around the world. We've shipped more than, I think it's more than 100,000 or almost 200,000 dev kits. So you can get your hands on one. You can start building for Oculus. It's an awesome experience, and I encourage you to do that if you're interested. In terms of how this fits into the overall vision, you know, one of the big trends that we've seen on Facebook and on the internet overall is that as time goes on, people get these richer and richer mediums for sharing what's important to them. So if you go back 10 or 15 years, most of what we shared on the internet was text, right? And over the last 5 or 10 years, now a lot of it is photos. Then it's visual, and so photos, other kind of graphical content. Over the next period of time, we're really, I think, entering this golden age of internet video, where the primary way that we're going to both share our experience and consume other people's kind of experience and ideas online is going to be through video. So you've seen this progression from text to photos that were graphic but static to videos that are now kind of animated and richer. But I don't think videos are the end of the line, right? Because as rich as a video is in terms of telling a story, it's it's still just small screen. It's still 2D, and I think that people want an even richer medium, right? You want to be able to feel like you're there, and that's what virtual reality and augmented reality can do. They can make it so that you actually feel like you're right there in the scene. So my wife and I are expecting a daughter sometime soon. And one of the things that I look really forward to doing is, traditionally people, write to their, thank you, by the way, I'm very excited about that as well. People will, write to their parents, oh, our baby had her first steps, or, you take a photo, or more recently, you take a video. I mean, I want my family to be able to be there, right? I mean, so to take a video or capture that experience of her taking her first steps, and then to be able to share that experience and make it so that my parents, my friends who weren't maybe able to be there in person can feel like they're there and experiencing that and seeing her do that and take those steps. And that, I think, is going to be really magical. So in terms of how this fits into the overall vision of social media, the trend is towards richer and richer communication. And I think at some point in the future, it's going to take maybe 5 or 10 years to really develop before this is a very big thing that a lot of people are doing. I think that this is going to be something where you can capture these scenes and you can share them in your feed or on WhatsApp, just like you share a photo or text today, and you'll be able to pass around these things which are going to be very close to real life experiences that we have. And I think that's going to be pretty amazing. I'm really excited about that.
So we have the first student question here. Rachit, what's your question?
Hey, Mark. Thank you for coming to IIT Delhi. It's a great honor for us. And my name is Rachit. I'm a student here. So Facebook can be investing a lot in AI with the opening of Facebook AI Research Lab in Paris and other university collaborations. So what are some of the future products we can expect from Facebook in this regard?
Yeah, so AI is a really exciting area of development. I think about it, we have this goal that in 5 to 10 years, we want to be able to build computer systems which can be better at the main human senses than people are, right? So can see better, right? Can kind of recognize people or things in the world, can kind of track as we travel through the world, can hear better, can translate language better, can understand language, right? All these things which are kind of basic human senses. Now, it's important to differentiate that. That does not mean that we're going to have computers that are smarter than people anytime soon. For a long time, we've been able to build computers that can do specific tasks better than people, but I still think we're very, very far off from having computers which are generally more intelligent in any way. So this is one step on kind of the path to delivering great services. And the type of stuff that we're going to see is it's less that it's going to be completely new products, and it's more going to be that there's this increasing intelligence through a lot of the different things that we do. So let me give you 2 examples. So one is, this is something that we actually just launched in the last week or 2, is we take accessibility features on Facebook very seriously, right? So for people who are blind or can't see the service, we want to make sure that they can experience the moments that their friends are sharing with them. So one of the things that we can do now is if you're blind and you can't see a photo, we can have our AI look at the photo and figure out what's in it, and then read an explanation of what is in the photo to you. So here's the person who's in the photo, they're riding a bike, here's the scene, here's what's going on. It's not 100%, it'll improve and it'll keep on getting better in the future, but I think that that's a really cool thing that you can do when you have computers that can see the world in the way that people do. And that's the type of thing that I'm really excited about. A second example. So I talked about Safety Check earlier, connected to the earthquake here. And right now, the best way for people to know that their friends and loved ones are safe are to either have yourself mark yourself as safe, or for you to mark your friend as safe, and then for us to distribute that out to the people who are going to care, right, to your friends and family. In the future, I think that it's going to be possible, with satellites and things like that, to be able to identify who is in an area and know immediately who is safe, who needs help. Today, a lot of what we do is, for people who are going in for relief efforts, they look at maps and they see where the areas that are affected are. But, is that the kind of thing that a computer could do better than a person in the future? Probably, right? And that'll save people's lives. And that's the type of stuff that I think making it so that computers can see better and can hear better are just going to unlock all this value for the world, and are going to save lives, are going to make a lot of content more accessible, and just improve a lot of the things that we do already to a large degree. So that's what I'm really excited about there.
We have a question here from you, Mohit.
Hi, Mark. Welcome to India.
Thanks.
My name is Mohit. I'm from Delhi. I'm working as a software testing engineer. My question is how Facebook help those people who are living in India below poverty line, and role of Facebook in uneducated people.
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch the last part.
How can you help illiterate people who are sort of grappling with education, formal education challenges? Yeah.
So this is a really interesting area. Facebook, our mission is giving people the power to share and making the world more open and connected. But I also spend some time thinking about what the impact is that I can have outside of Facebook as well. And I've focused a lot of my time on learning about the education system, both in the US and increasingly worldwide as well. And we've done a few big projects, starting off in a city called Newark, New Jersey. And we started that about 5 years ago. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that already in just the few years since we got started, the graduation rate in that city has increased, I think it's from 56% to now 69%. So there's still a lot of room for improvement, but 13%, yeah, no, I'm really excited about that too. 13% in just a few years of work, where that means that whatever improvements were made in the schools, all the students who are going through that haven't really even gone through the whole system with those improvements, already up 13%. That's a big deal. So that was kind of the first set of things that we did. And then after that, we took on other initiatives, including working in our home in the Bay Area in California, to take what we learned from that experience in Newark and double down on the things that worked well, creating new school models, funding the parts that worked really well in the public schools there. And that one is newer, so that's only a year, 2 years old, but we're already really excited about the results that we're starting to see there as well. Internationally, we have a few investments in creating new types of schools throughout Africa, and hoping to spread that to India sometime soon as well. But I mean, there are a lot of people in the world who don't have access to good educational tools, and this is one area where I think not only being able to spread access to good schools, but this is an area where connectivity and access to the internet is really going to be able to help out a lot as well. Because for all the people who don't have access to a good school, being able to have some basic access to educational resources online is going to make a really big deal in people's lives. So that's a pretty big focus for me. The other area that I'm increasingly interested in is really health and science, right? I mean, one of the things that strikes me is, we have all this amazing technology, and the world is getting better and better at such a fast rate. And we've only really, as a civilization, been really focused on curing the diseases that face us for probably about 100 years, maybe a little bit less even. And one thing that I think is a little bit crazy, you look around the world, I mean, in the US, there's the stat that the US government spends about 50 times as much money trying to treat people who are sick as it spends trying to cure the diseases in the first place, that people don't get sick. And I think that that's pretty similar if you look at the exact stats around the world. I don't know exactly what the stats here are in India, but I think that there's a really big opportunity to change that, right? And for our generation of folks to say, hey, the world is getting better at a very fast rate. And instead of just looking at the status quo around this, we should be shifting more of our resources towards longer-term investments that can actually try to cure all these diseases, right? So that way, I don't know if they'll all be cured in our generation or maybe not even in our kids, but I do think we can make a big dent, and maybe, in our kids' lives or their kids' lives, we can create a world where people don't have to suffer from the kind of diseases that there are today. So those are some pretty big things that I think we should be trying to take on as a generation around the world. And if we can make a big impact, then that'll be really, really a big deal.
We have a question here, and
Where'd you go?
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark. This is funny.
All right. It is.
My question seems to be funny also. So my question for you is, if Mark is gifted some supernatural powers from some aliens, what powers would Mark wish for, and how would he use for the betterment of world?
It's a good question. All right, so one of the great things about technology is you actually can build superpowers for people in the world. And that's some of the stuff that I think is really exciting. So when I think about what we're doing with Oculus, for example, I think that what we're really enabling is people to teleport, right? You're going to be able to put on a headset and go anywhere you want in the world. You'll be able to go to places that are impossible to go to in the world. I mean, one of my favorite recent demos from Oculus is, you put on the headset, and you're in this room with someone else who has the headset on somewhere else that can be in a completely different place, and there's this table in front of you. Of course, it's virtual, and there's a ping pong paddle on it, and you can pick up the ping pong paddle, and you can start playing ping pong with the other person. And it just feels pretty awesome. It's like, all right, well, I might be in a completely different location from them, but we can kind of teleport and come together and have that experience. But that's only the beginning, because then where it really starts to get awesome is you can then, in that experience, you can dial up and down gravity. So you can simulate, you can turn off gravity, and you can simulate what it would be like to play ping pong with a friend in space or underwater. Or you can make it, anti-gravity. So that way, the ball floats away, and you have to hit it down in order to make it so that it doesn't go away. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy. right? And in the future, I think, not too far out, we're going to have the ability to just put on a basic headset and instantaneously go anywhere in the world that you want. And that is going to be pretty good.
We have a question here from Miriam on internet.org and net neutrality. I'll let her ask.
Good afternoon, Mark. I'm Miriam George, Assistant Professor from CMR Institute of Technology, Bangalore. And I'd say that internet.org is actually a great initiative which provides a lot of opportunities. However, there's been a lot of discussion and talks on net neutrality and internet.org. So my question is, does internet.org support net neutrality fully, let's say 100%, without any filtering?
Yeah, absolutely. So, net neutrality is an important principle, right? And we do a lot to support it, both in terms of pushing for regulation that kind of enables this, and I mean also just in our own work, building an open platform that any developer can build something for, regardless of who they are, as long as they kind of follow the basic rules of what internet.org is. So, let me kind of explain and go into detail on both of these. So in terms of regulation, now I think a lot of why there's this net neutrality debate here in India and in a lot of places around the world is countries are just kind of going around and figuring out what they want their regulation to be for the internet and for net neutrality. The US, I think it was either earlier this year or last year, put in place rules that had pretty strong net neutrality regulations that we gave our support for and suggested that there were kind of very clear rules on net neutrality that got put into place. And now kind of following that, a lot of other countries are also figuring out exactly what rules they want, and we're generally supportive of that across the world as well. In terms of open platform, there have been a lot of stories here in India that suggest that what we're trying to do with internet.org is just have a small set of internet services that people can use and kind of somehow make it so that people can't have access to the rest. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. What we're trying to do is, we realize that, the internet is expensive to provide, right? I mean, the operators all collectively spend, billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on this infrastructure, and you can't just provide the whole internet for free. But what we have figured out is we can do this free basics program that make it so that any developer who meets the definition of a basic service, so not very high bandwidth, no rich videos or big file downloads, but any developer is doing something that's basically text, pretty low bandwidth, not directly cannibalizing a lot of the operator business. Anyone can kind of offer their services for free, and it will be zero rated through the free basics platform that we have. And that, I think, has been very powerful. And it provides this neutral platform where we're not being a filter on any of the content that goes into that. And I think that that's really important and really good. So, net neutrality overall, it's, this is an important topic, right? I mean, it's really important that we have regulations that prevent companies and people from doing things that are going to hurt people, right? And I think it's really clear if you look at what the regulations are trying to prohibit, where that hurts people and where it doesn't, right? So, so if you're a person, you're trying to, watch some videos on YouTube or Netflix, and an operator wants to charge you more to do that than something else, then, that's bad. I mean, that hurts people. It prevents your ability to access content. It's a violation of net neutrality, and that's the type of thing that we should have regulations that prohibit. If an operator is trying to advantage their own service, right, by making you pay more for something else, then that's the kind of thing you can see why that hurts people, and you want net neutrality regulations in place that are going to prevent that. But at the same time, it is possible to take this too far, right? And some of the people who are advocating for net neutrality regulations also advocate that you shouldn't be able to do any kind of zero rating or free services at all. But when I look at this, I see, if you have a student who is getting free access to the internet to be able to help do her homework and she wouldn't have had access otherwise, who's getting hurt there? Right? I mean, that's good. Right? We want that. There should be more of that. If there's a fisherman in a village who now has some free access to the internet to help sell some of his fish and provide for his family, no one gets hurt by that. Right? Internet. The good news here is that around the world, all the regulations that are put in place are basically honoring this principle, right? So good net neutrality provisions, kind of blocking things that operators might do that kind of hurt people, but also prioritizing things like zero rating that are necessary for making sure that we can connect everyone to the internet. So the US regulations that I mentioned earlier, very clear on this. Very strong net neutrality provisions, completely separate in terms of how they treat zero rating and not blocking zero rating at all, right? So, and that's a country where most people have access to the internet. It's not like India where 1 billion people don't have access to the internet, and even more innovation is necessary to expand on that. I think it's just this week, the EU just released rules on net neutrality and zero rating, where again, they put in place some net neutrality rules, very clear that zero rating and things that provide some free access to the internet are kind of clear to go and are going to be regulated separately and are not prohibited by any of the net neutrality regulations. So that's my view on this. Internet.org and Facebook 100% support net neutrality. We lobby for it across the world. We build an open platform with no filtering. You guys should count on us to be supportive of that. But at the same time, I think we should all make sure that we also continue to push for access, because that is extremely important. And I'll leave you with one thought on this, which is that most of the folks who are pushing for net neutrality have access to the internet already, right? So I mean, I see these petitions going around net neutrality, and that's great, right? I mean, we need to mobilize on the internet to push for this stuff. But the people who are not yet on the internet can't sign an online petition pushing for increased access to the internet.